Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's ClaritySoft training webinar. Today is Tuesday, January 11th, 2022, our first webinar of the new year. And our topic today is exploring custom fields. This is an appropriate topic for the start of the new year, I think, because sometimes we're doing some house cleaning and reorganizing and things like that. And talking about custom fields may get you thinking about some ways that you can take your existing ClaritySoft database and maybe spruce it up a little bit, add some new custom fields that will help your team search for, sort, report on different pieces of data. Also, the other reason I wanted to do this very quickly was that we just added some new functionality to the custom fields that I wanted to tell you about. So I wanted to get the year started off with people knowing that. All right, so today, first of all, we're going to look at the different custom field types. Those of you that already have a database and have been maybe the admin person who's added custom fields to your database, are already familiar with these, but I want to go over them because some of the ones you may not have explored or used yet, and they might give you some new ideas on how you can use them in your own database to do some upgrading. We'll build examples of the different field types and then show them and how they work. So there is some new terminology in the settings menu. Instead of UI template, we now call it record designer. So I want to make sure you're aware of that as well. And then as we talk, I'll give you some design tips for when you're setting up your database and thinking about it. And one of the main things now is to understand the flow of the data through the database. We now can have data from a custom field that starts in the leads record and goes all the way through the whole database until you get to projects if you're using it. So to understand that, and actually you also can have custom fields in the enhanced activities module if you have that module, and data will flow into the activity record from another record. So that's an important one to understand too. So a lot of new things that hopefully you'll get some use out of today. All right, the first thing I wanted to show you to make sure you all understand the data flow through the database. These things tend to change, and we at one point had a little break in the data flow from accounts to contacts, but that was fixed about a year ago. So when you're in ClaritySoft, if you put a custom field, and I've got two samples here of market segment and product interest in the leads module, and you then create the same data fields in accounts, contacts, and opportunities, when you convert a lead record to create those three new records, the data will flow into the matching fields in the other modules, okay? Also, if you don't use the leads module, you can start in accounts, and if you put market segment into accounts and contacts, the data will flow from accounts to a new contact record, okay? From the new contact record, then it would flow to a new opportunity record. From an opportunity record, it will flow from opportunity when you convert to a quote, or if you convert an opportunity to a sale, or if you convert an opportunity to a project. I didn't put all the million arrows in here because it was getting too complicated. But any of these, once it's in the module, when you do the conversion of a quote to a sale, or a quote to a project, or a quote to an opportunity, data will flow. And then also, as I just mentioned, if you have enhanced activities, then you can put these custom fields into an activity record. And when you create a new activity, that data will flow into it. So some of you may be asking, what are enhanced activities? If you've come on board ClaritySoft in the last 6 weeks and had your new database created in the last 5 or 6 weeks, you have enhanced activities by default. If you have an older database, you do not, but you may call our tech support team and have your database converted to enhanced activities. There's no cost. Everybody's getting it now that is new. So anyone that's has an older database can convert to it. And what that will give you will be the capability to create custom fields in the activity records, okay, which you have not been able to do. And some people have kind of like, yikes, I wish I could do that. Well, now you can. So like I said, you just simply call tech support and they will have the dev team do the conversion. All your data, your activity data converts over, no problem. So you won't lose anything. But what you will gain is the ability then to customize your activity records with some custom data fields. The other thing you do have to consider, if you are using the offline version of ClaritySoft, which we're finding not many people are, you will lose access to that. So if somebody on your team is using the offline version, you'd want to talk to them and see if that becomes an issue. Then you'd have to maintain the current activities. Okay, so that's the data flow that I want you to understand. It basically can flow entirely throughout the database. Okay, so let's go ahead and flip to, where am I here? ClaritySoft. And when you first start with your database, if you're just starting with it, then usually you're logging in and there's just a few sample records in there and you start putting in, deciding upon and putting in your custom fields. So you sit down, you think about, well, what do we want to track? What do we need to sort by? What do we need to filter by? All of those things. And then you begin adding the different fields. Before you start, you may want to go to the knowledge base, which is up here, the question mark and knowledge base, and then type in custom fields. See, I can't type any better than I could last year. No improvement. And then you can choose the topic. And here it will give you a little video on customization, but then you get a description of each type of custom field, what the format is and how it will display and those kinds of things. So if you haven't looked at this, this is a good place to start to see what types of fields you already have. I will mention now some of these here that are in blue, these are ones that are the more quote advanced custom fields. So if you have the professional level of ClaritySoft, then you will not see these fields when you do your customization. But if you have Accelerator, which I'm going to say 90% of you do, then you will have these different fields. And then the only ones are the ones that I can think of that are at the enterprise level, definitely calculated fields, although I'm going to show you those today so you can see if you are interested in those. But there's a nice description here of the different data types and the custom fields. So that's there, so you can explore that. All right, so let's just go in and see what's what. So to get to custom fields, you must be an admin user in the database. So if you're not, you either need to ask to become an admin, made an admin user, or go to your admin person and sit down and create the fields you want. So you go to settings, and then on the left, you will see customization. And underneath customization, then when you click on the different modules, you will on the right hand side or underneath will have custom fields. And then on the right hand side, you'll have the ability to add the custom fields. So a couple of things under here, if you are familiar with the customization, you will notice that this terminology, record designer, is here. This is what formerly was UI templates. So we changed it to record designer. After that, it works exactly the same. Another new option here, which is very, very exciting. And I'm going to assume some of you are going to go back and say, oh, I want to do this. We have added what's called a global field. And a global field is one that you can add and place in all the different modules where you want it to go. And the cool thing is, if you, let's say you put a global field in accounts, contacts, opportunities, quotes, and sales, you put it everywhere. When you go back to, say, the account record and you change the option, it auto-populates throughout all those records automatically. This has been things that a question that has come up with lots of people that I've worked with. What if I change my account to be a customer? Then I have to go to contacts to change it. I have to go to opportunities if I have that field in all those modules. You can have it there, and the only time it would update is if you created a new contact, then that contact would be set as a customer. But now with the global field, you can change it in one of the modules and it changes it everywhere. So I'm assuming that the people here are thinking of how they want to use that. So I want to demonstrate that one first. And what you do in the global field, if you look it up in the knowledge base, you first go to system settings, and then you go to general. And over here, you'll see global field parent. So you want to set which field is the parent field. And then that's the one that if you change it, will change it everywhere. So you can make it an account or a contact. I'm going to make it an account. That's the default that's there. Okay, and the global fields are at all levels. So when you go into your ClaritySoft and you go to settings, you will see global fields no matter what level you have. Okay, so that's there. If you change it, then you would need to go down and click apply and then log out and log back in if you make a change. So that's the first step with a global field. Then you come back over here to customization and click on global fields. And then you do what you normally do with a custom field. You add, and then you're going to give it a name. Well, I'm going to call this, I don't want to call it just plain status, because status is a field used throughout the database and it creates a conflict. So I'm going to call this, I don't know, account status, just to make it different. And then I can say it's a drop down, and I could say, if I'm using the leads module, I'd probably want it to be prospect. I'm keeping it simple. Or customer, okay, or client, okay. Again, you think of a field that would be beneficial, that when you want to make a change in one spot, it goes throughout the database. It could be a status type field, it could be something else. Now, here is something else that's new. Previously, when you were creating custom fields, you had to copy paste them to all the different modules. Well, here we now have the ability to just immediately say where you want this to go. So if I put this in contacts, invoices isn't there yet. I want it in opportunities to know if the person has been changed to a customer. Maybe that's not a big deal. If they get to projects, they probably are a customer. And then quotes, possibly sales. I'm just going to throw it in here so you can see how this works. Okay. Then I click save. Then once I've done that, I need to come over to my record designer and go to account record. And I might have to log out, but I don't. So a global field now will appear in orange. Your custom fields that you add will appear in blue, which you'll see shortly. But if I drag this over now, I will be able to see that account status, okay? And I can save it. Now, remember when you're doing your record designer, your screen layout, if you're using other access profiles for your people, then you need to copy that design layout to your other access profiles that you're using, okay? Just remember that because you can now copy them wherever you want them to go. So I'll just copy it here. So I do that, I save it, and then I click the back button and I would go to my contact record and there's my account status. So I have to go to the individual screen layout record designers and set the field, but that field now is going to be throughout the database when it changes. Okay, so I'm going to go back here and I'll do opportunities. Did I do opportunities? I think I did. Yep. So I can do all of these out to my, I don't remember. Yeah, I did do it here. Okay. Okay. And that'll be good. So once I'm done with that, then I can log out, log back in. And when I go to an account and open it, and I set my account status, I'm going to set them as a prospect, okay, to start with. Do a save. Then if I go to my contacts, I can do it from here. Set as a prospect. And notice too that that contact already exists. The other custom fields only flow if you're creating a new one. So with the global field, it goes automatically. All right. So that's cool. That's there. If I add a new opportunity, I don't have any in here, but when I add a new opportunity, account status is set. Okay. So let me choose a contact real quick here and type in a sales stage and save this. Now here's the cool part. I'm going to go back at my account record and I'm going to change this to customer. Save it. Go to contacts. Customer. How cool is that, guys? We've been wanting this forever. Okay. And if I go to the opportunity record, customer. So that's how that global field will work. Where you change it, it will automatically change it throughout the database, which is wonderful. Okay. And I was going to say something, but now I forgot what it was. So it'll come back to me in a moment. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Underneath your tabs here, because I'm going to the tabs rather than just going look it up elsewhere. I can go to this gear shape here and I can pull over account status into my subtabs view. And so then it shows me right here. And I can have it in the subtab view for the opportunity record. I can pull it over. Okay. So that's your global field. So I'm hoping everybody can think of ways to use that. So Megan is asking me if you already have custom fields that you've put in all the various flow points, you have to go back in and change all of that to create a global field. What you'd want to do, Megan, is create the global field. Two things. You can't have the same field name, okay? So what you'd want to do is maybe go to the existing field, just slightly change its name. Sometimes I just have people put an X at the end of it. Just change the name as you have it now. Then you would go back and create a global field and then just use that, get that global field set up. And you may have to, do some editing of your data to make sure it's all set correctly. Once you have the global field all set up with the data in it that needs to be in it, that original field you can just remove from view in your record designer, leave the data there, but you'd have your global field. So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, so you can do that. And then that just makes it easier because that's a question I get asked a lot. What if I change a customer in the account record? It doesn't change it going throughout the database, but the global field will now do that. Okay. So it's something that everyone should be able to use. All righty. Okay. So that's new feature, why I wanted to do this early in the year. And then your other custom fields, basically out of the box, ClaritySoft is pretty simple. We don't have much in the way other than a company name, phone number, website, and address information. So the beauty of the database is that you then can customize it to fit your specific business by adding the data fields that you want. And these are the different types that are available. So I'm going to go back to settings and we're just going to set up some different ones. And for the most part, I'm just going to set these in, I'll set these in accounts for what I'm doing right now. Okay. Just to mention this, if you see these type A1, type A2 fields, these are data fields that are for ClaritySoft offline. They still sometimes appear in your database, but you don't really need or want to use them because they don't go anywhere other than accounts. They don't flow from one field to another. So you literally can disable them. At some point, we'll have the dev team just completely remove them. So I want to add custom field. And the first custom field that I want to add is maybe like an ID code. Sometimes people put in data where they have a customer number that's coming over from their accounting system, or they have some sort of ID code or something like that, or I don't know, just something that is specific to the one record. In that case, creating a text field is fine because you're going to type one thing in it. Okay, it's unique and it's going to be different for every single customer. And so a text field here, these are all the different data fields that you can select from. And again, depending on the level of ClaritySoft that you have, you may not see all of these in your list. Okay, I have the top level with everything. So I'm just going to create a simple text field. Now here's the other new functionality. Previous, when you created this field and you wanted it in contacts and everywhere else, you would have to go over here, go to the module, create the new custom field, save it, go to the next module and create it. Well, now what you can do is create it and say, I want this in contacts. I want this in the opportunity record. I want this in projects and quotations and sales because it's an ID code that identifies that customer. Okay. So you check them all and then you save. So just like that global field, you were deciding where you wanted it to go. You do the same thing now with the custom fields. Now, if you go into your settings and you create a new custom field and you do not see all those check boxes, then again, you need to call the tech support team and they would need to change your database to what's called ClaritySoft Live. And then you will see those. And again, what will happen when you do that, you will lose access to the offline version. So you want to check to make sure that nobody on your team is using offline and wants to use offline. And then you can switch to the live and you can switch to the enhanced activities. Basically, they can do it all at the same time. Okay, so I've added that one. Another field that I want to add is one I'm going to call market segment. And then this one I'm going to make into a drop down. Okay. What you want to do with drop downs, wherever there are certain choices that your team can make, rather than giving them a free form text field, it's always safer to give them a drop down list, because then you're always going to get consistent spellings of the options. And also people won't type random weird things in a text field that doesn't have anything to do with market segment. Okay. So if you give people drop downs, it makes it easier for searching. It also makes it easier for your people to know what's supposed to go in there. And I'm just copying a list from over here. And so I have my list, and you can type as much in here. You have up to 4,000 characters available, which would make a pretty long list that you probably don't want to get that tall. Now, another thing I want to show you, because this happens quite often, people start typing a list in here. So you just, type an option, press enter. I'll just say food. Oops. Service or something like that. And sometimes what happens is they get down here and they end up typing and not realizing it. They get a couple extra presses of the enter key. And I'll show you what happens in a minute with that, because it happens a lot of times and then people get confused. But I also want this market segment in contacts. Now, I could think about putting this in activities, because when I create an activity for a particular customer, I would know whether that customer is, what market area they're in. And maybe when I run activity reports, I want to base it upon the market segment. How many activities did we do in the healthcare facility field, or how many did we do in education, et cetera? You may or may not use that, but throw it in. What the heck? You would want to have it in leads. You want it in opportunities. You probably want to go all the way through the database for it, maybe even the support module if you're using it. So you literally check off everything where you want it to go and then save it. Now watch what happens when I save. It says, oh, a duplicate drop-down value is not allowed. So you go back and you look at your list and say, well, I don't have a duplicate drop-down value. Well, according to the computer, you do, because you have extra presses of the enter key. So just backspace those out and then save it. This happens fairly often when I'm working with people at the beginning, and it's just something that occurs where you're just typing stuff in. So just now, if you get that message, why. Okay, so we've added this drop down. Then another thing that's kind of a cool field that you can add is one that's called a drop down dependent, where the second drop down field depends upon what you choose in the first drop down field. So I'm just going to add a lot of these and then we'll go see how they work. So I'm going to add a new field, and then I'm going to call this market. Just call it market detail. Okay. And I'm going to make this a drop down dependent field. Well, what happens, ClaritySoft goes and hunts for any data field that is a drop down type data field, and it would put it in a list here. I only have one. And then it shows me what the parent values are. So what I get to do now is if I click on retail, then I get to add particular options for the retail, that if I pick retail, I could type in, well, is this retail store a franchise type store or a privately owned or independent type store? And I can put as many choices as I want. Then I click on manufacturing and I can put in choices for that. And I just made up some random things here. So do they manufacture machinery? Do they manufacture electronics? I mean, these are kind of warpy, but that's okay. Do they do consumer products? You will get the point here. Okay, then I'll click on education and I can copy these. Okay. And then I'll click on food service. I didn't really anticipate this is restaurant. We could do, I'll just say grocery, whatever. Okay, and then healthcare facility. I can put my choices in for that. Okay, so what I've done is I've now created, in a sense, a sublist for each of the parent values up above. And then I'll save it. Okay. And then while we're here, I'm going to add another field for a drop-down multi-select. Again, you guys may be familiar with those if you've already been working in ClaritySoft. So what I want here is I'm going to create one called product interest. This may be for finding out, what services you offer or major products you offer that people are interested in. So instead of one, you might want to be able to check off multiple ones. Okay. And then again, I have some just kind of goofy things. And I want to decide, well, where do I want this to go? Again, the activity could be about a particular product. I might want to look it up in contacts, leads, opportunities, projects, quotes, sales, and even support. All right. Then I want to do another one where I'm going to create one called options and make it a drop down. Okay. And all this will come together once we get back into the database. So that's there. I just have option A, B, and C. And I'm going to put it, I won't put it in activities. I'll do leads. And I won't put it in support. Okay. Then what I want to add to this options one, another field that goes along with the drop-down dependent, is a text dependent field. And so what I want to do there is call this, I'll just say option description. And this is going to become a text dependent, and you have a text dependent multi-line and a text dependent single line. I would suggest using the multi-line just because it creates a larger box and wraps for you, does a text wrap. So notice it's picking the market segment by default. That's not the one I want. So I click here and choose options. Okay, and then I get my options. And over here, I'm just doing a copy paste. Okay, option B. And you can type pretty much as much text as you want here. So this could be a description of a policy or anything that you think would be helpful to your sales team when they're picking certain things. Again, the data can be pulled into a report or a quote or something like that. Then down here is your field height, where you can increase the field height of the text. Okay. So save that. So what I've done now is I've created a simple text field, a drop down dependent that depends on this one, a drop down multi-select, and then a text dependent multi-line that depends on this drop down. And I've copied these to the other modules. All right. So what I'm going to do, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to come up here and log out and then log back in. We have found that sometimes you need to log out after you've created the data fields, or they don't show up in the record designer. Just with some of the new stuff they've added, we've had that occur. So you didn't have to do that before. But now what I need to do is go to the record designer, and all of my new fields that are now here are in blue. So this makes it easier too for you as a user. Before, you didn't know which were the ClaritySoft fields and which were the custom fields, and now you know. So if I wanted to put in, I don't know, maybe the ID code can go here, and I'm just going to start pulling these over here. I'm going to put this over there and this over there. So market segment, I'm going to put above the detail, options description, and maybe product interest here. So you can, you can put these anywhere you want. Okay. Also in your record designer, you can go to this field configurations tab, and you have the ability to make a field visible or not. I mean, obviously, if you're creating a custom field, you want it visible, okay, for the most part. Read only, if you're putting in a numeric kind of field that might hold some data that's coming from somewhere else, you're importing it in, and you don't want your people to be able to change it, but you want them to be able to see the information, then you could make a field read only, okay? And you just go down and check next to it. Then the other one is required. And so when someone's creating a brand new record, you may want them to be required to enter certain data. And you have to be careful on this, because sometimes when people are entering a new record, they don't have all the data that you decide is required, and they can't save that record until they have all the data. So then they get frustrated, because then they can't put in what they want to put in, and then, you're losing them. So you don't want to do that. So, make, maybe a phone number required, so they get at least a phone number if they're entering a new contact, an email address or something like that. So they're getting that basic information, but don't give them like everything in the record as required, or you'll have a bunch of frustrated users. Okay. And then the other thing here, report permission. This is for the reports module for accounts, what they can do in the reports module. All right. And then your column customization. This is nice. Again, this is a question that comes up a lot of times at the beginning when people are first starting with ClaritySoft. How do I want to set up the columns that my people can see when they log in. Well, previously it was an individual thing that they had to do themselves, and now you can set it up. So if you wanted account status in here, and you wanted them to be able to see the market segment, you can pull this in. Maybe you don't care about website. And you could pull these over so that they can see that information as soon as they log in. Maybe you want them to know what state they're in. So whatever seems logical when they first log in, then they still would be able to change it. Then you apply this to the users. Okay, you're sorting by the account. We can also set this to 100 off the bat and apply it to the users and then save it. So then when any new user logs in, they will have these columns by default in their record. Okay. And then I'd have to go to my contact record. All the places where I copied those fields to, they're all here, but I do have to set them up in the each record in the module. I won't go through worrying about all that right now. Okay, I didn't copy one of these. So anyway, so you would do that and set everything up. But the original copy paste of all the lists you don't have to do, which is nice. So if I log out and log back in, I can then open my record and I have an ID code. I can type in, and because it's text, it could be, you know, could be a combination of text and numbers. The account status is our global field, market segment. Now here's where we choose this. So if I choose retail, then when I go to the market detail, the dependent field, it only shows me franchise and private. Okay. If I choose manufacturing, it shows me my manufacturing options. So this is really kind of nice to be able to get a main category and then a subcategory for it. Now, each one of these is only a single select option. So you would, you know, need to think that through if that will work. But that dependent field is nice. And then product interest, this is a multi-select. So I could say they're interested in both of these. Okay. And then options, if I pick option A, there's my text. If I pick option B, there's my text. So it's a way to save your people time and give them information that they might need about certain things in the database. And you can see it's pretty easy to set those fields up and then put them, you know, copy them to the other modules. Now that's really great to be able to do, saves a lot of time. And then all you have to do is go to the record designer and move them into the position in the field. Okay. Now with custom fields, if I click save here and save this, and I go to an existing contact, then it's not going to pull that information in. This is something to understand. Excuse me. But if I add a new contact, then you see it pulls the information across. That's the difference between what would be a global field that would change all the way through the database versus the custom field data flow. The custom field data flow is when you're adding a new record, the data will flow into the matching fields in the new record. It will not populate an existing record. If you added new custom fields right now, you would have to go and edit your records, your existing records, to update the data. Okay, so just so everybody knows that. All right. I can leave that because I didn't add a name. All righty. Then, so we've done the dependent. You also have date time fields that you can put in. For example, if you need to track contract dates or subscription dates, like a start date and then an end date, so that you can search, you know, for all of the contracts or subscriptions that are due to expire next month or in the next 2 months, then you can pull up a list and send them an email to notify them that their subscription is expiring or their policy or whatever you're tracking. So those are date fields that are available to you. Some other fields that are available are, there's a link field. I go to customization, I'm doing all these in accounts. I can add a new field and let's just say LinkedIn. I can make it a link type field, okay? And then I can copy it to other places. I'm not going to bother with that right now. And then save it. And then I'm going to add another field that's helpful to people. A lot of times they want to know whether something's been done or not, or they have something that's kind of a yes, no, yes, it's yes or no for an answer. And a lot of times they'll create a drop down and just have yes, no in it. Well, the other type of field that you can create is what's called a checkbox field. And I'm just going to put in, I'll just say document signed. You know, maybe there's a document they need to return to you and is signed and you want to know, did they do it or didn't they? So right here, you can choose a checkbox, okay? And then you can align the checkbox on the left or the right. And again, it can be in multiple fields. So that's another field. Then the other one, let's see, another one that can be very helpful for people. Sometimes they need to know that a company has a parent organization or a parent company. And again, you could leave it as a type it in, but again, with your people, they don't always type it consistently if there are multiple people under the same parent. So then when you go to search, it doesn't come up right, okay? Because they typed it differently. So if you want to put in a parent organization, a way to do that is to create what we call a lookup field. And then you have a lookup of accounts, contacts, or users, okay? Another way to use this lookup field, especially if you use users, I'll just pop this in here because it occurred to me, is sometimes people have, you know, you have the owner of the record in ClaritySoft, but then sometimes other users in the system might work with the owner of the record as a secondary sales rep or support kind of person. If you create a lookup field, then and point it to users, then you would be able to assign a second user. There's also a multi-value lookup, okay, where you can choose more than one option. So if you had situations where more than one user might work with someone on an opportunity or a project or something like that, then you can create a multi-value lookup. Okay, so explore all of these and look at them and think through what might be helpful. I'm going to connect this to accounts. Again, I'm not going to send it to other modules right now. And one more that's can be helpful is one called a text wrap field, where you might want to type some additional text kind of notes in here. I'm just going to type in special notes and make it a text wrap type field, okay? And then save it. So we've got all of those that are in here. And if I go, and notice I can go to the record designer directly from here now. I don't have to go over on the left. I can click here to go to the directly to the account record designer. So I can drop, and I'm just going to pull these over, shove them in. Well, maybe I'll put that over there. And then special notes can go down here. Okay. And then save it. And log out. Okay. Now, when you're doing the customization, logging out and logging in is something you do a lot. Okay, so if I open this now, see document signed, checkbox, okay? And that would be equivalent to a true or false in a search. LinkedIn, you can type in whatever their LinkedIn address is, or you can type if you did something out of the website, and I have no idea what a LinkedIn address would be. So I'm just going to type ClaritySoft. Notice as soon as I start typing in here that this becomes a hyperlink. So if I click on this, it will jump to claritysoft.com. So if you put in their LinkedIn address and then you click on this, it will jump to it. So the link field can be anything. You can create multiple link fields to jump to, their different social media pages or other locations, and it will jump immediately to there. Okay. So that's really nice to be able to do. And then over here, the special notes, this is a text wrap field, so I can type whatever notes I want in here. This holds up to 4,000 characters and it will scroll. You also can go back in and make this box taller, just like you can make that box taller. Okay, so all the different ones there. And another one that I want to show you, because people may want to use this, is called a relationship type field. And this is kind of a cool field. You may have to think through how to use it, but it's pretty cool the way it works. So I'm going to go here. So let me say that I have people in my database that serve on boards of directors for some of the other people in the database. Okay. And so what I want to do is I want to connect the contact person to the company or the account that they're a board member for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new field. And what you want to do with the relationship field is choose the data type first. You'll see it right here. And notice what it does. It's actually going to have you create two fields. So the first field is in the account record because that's where I'm starting. And what I want to call this is board members. Okay. Then the second one I want to create in the contact module, and I'm going to call it board member 4, because the person is a board member for some company. Okay. So I create that. Notice you don't get the copy to here. Okay. And it's because of the way it works. Now I'll go to my record designer and I need to go to the account record and I'll put board members up here, save it. And then I need to go to the contact record so that I have my board member 4. Okay, and save it. Then log out, log in. Oops, can't type. And when I go to my record here, so if I want to add a board member to Acme Company, I click on it. It's searching for a contact. So then I would start typing the name of a person. Okay. And here it's looking actually for the industry instead of the person, it seems. Oh, I don't know what it's looking for, but I'm just going to pick her. Okay. So Mariana is a board member. If I want to add another person, I can add, I'll pick Brian here. Okay. So I've added 2 board members here. And then this is the cool part. If I go to contacts and I look up Mariana and I open her record, she is board member for Acme Company. So the relationship field, when you set it up, no matter where you create the connection, it automatically fills it in on the other side. Okay. So I've got Mariana here as a board member for Acme Company. If I look up Brian and I open his record, he is a board member for Acme Company. Now, maybe Brian is also a board member for somebody else. So if I click add here in his record and I type in Gorman Industries, so he's now a board member for 2 companies. And I literally can click on Gorman Industries here and jump to it. I don't have to go search it. I can click here. Oops, forgot to save. It'll take me to the Gorman Industries record, and you can see Brian Luther is a board member. So this again may give people some ideas on how to set this up. The relationship field, you can set it up and you can have up to 8 relationships in the data field. You can connect lawyers to clients, you can connect accountants to clients, you can connect one company to another company. There's all kinds of ways you can do it, but you just have to realize you're limited to 8. And then, so think that through. The other beautiful part about this particular relationship field is it is searchable. Okay, so and you can view it in, so if I went here and I go to my column settings and I bring over board members, I will be able to see who are the board members for each company, if that's something that I track. We have a relationships tab from the very beginning of ClaritySoft, but it's never been searchable and it's never been able to be seen out in the list view. It's only under the tabs. So that's another one to consider. And I have 3 minutes to do a calculated field. And I'm going to do that in opportunities. And I'm going to add weighted amount, choose calculated. And again, most of you won't have this because this is at the enterprise level, but you'll choose calculated field. The return type is what do you want to have returned? I want it in currency format. And you could choose whether you want dollars and cents or not, or just a whole number. And what you then get to do is create the calculation. A question that comes up a lot of times in the opportunities module is we have a sales stage, which represents a percentage of probability. And we have an amount. And people want to know, okay, well, if I'm at this sales stage, this 50% probability, what is my weighted amount for my opportunity? It's not the full amount, it's only half of it, okay? So if you have calculated fields, then you can create a calculation for that. And this is a really simple one, but you have different operators here, all your mathematical operators, okay? You have Excel functions. This works very similarly to Excel, and you can create some pretty complex if-then statements, all kinds of different statements that do the calculations for you to pull up the information. You might need some help with doing that, but it's available to you. And then you can insert fields. So these are data fields that are in the opportunity record. So what I want is weighted amount is equal to the amount, and I can either type the times sign or I can go here to pick the operator from the drop down, okay? And then it's times the probability, okay? And then that needs to be divided by 100, okay? So that's my formula, pretty simple. Go down, save it, go to the record designer, and then here's my weighted amount. So I'm going to put it underneath here, save it, log out, log in, go to opportunities. And I have my opportunity here that I created. So right now I'm at presentation, which happens to be 50%. I put in $1,000 when I save the record, and notice it's set to 500. Now I'd probably want to go in and change it to dollars and cents so it matches here. But if I change my stage here, what I have to do to see this remultiply is click save, then go up into the browser window up here and click the refresh button. And then you see it updates itself. Okay. But that's pretty cool to be able to do, because then you always know what your weighted amount is in comparison to your sales stage percentage. So that's what calculated fields can do. And like I said, you can get some pretty complex sums of things. You know, I have somebody that has a bunch of deposits they collect before they do a building. And so they have the numbers in for the different deposits, and then they have a deposit total that adds up all the different deposits and keeps track of, you know, where they stand. I have some that do if statements, you know, if this is marked as this value, then do this calculation kind of thing. So it's another thing to consider. All right, we have reached the time. And we've covered a lot of material today. So first of all, thanks for coming. We got a new year started here. If you want to convert your database to the enhanced activities so that you have that and can customize your activity records with the custom fields, and or you also want to update to ClaritySoft Live so you have those checkboxes to be able to copy your custom fields to multiple modules at one time, then do call our tech support team at 888-838-7487 extension 2, or you can email them. It would be best to call them, but you can email them at support@claritysoft.com. And then they will explain, you know, the ramifications of doing what you want to do, so that you're sure you want to do it. And then usually once they turn in the support ticket for it, it's an overnight change. So it could be something you do, you know, on a Friday, requested for the next Monday or something like that. I don't know if they get a whole flurry of those over the weekend. They might not be able to do them all. But anyway, just call and they will help you with that. And then if you have any ideas for the new year, since we are starting a new year with webinars, please send them to info@claritysoft.com. And with that, I will let you go. So have a wonderful rest of your day and week, and we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks for the next webinar.